From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay,
a lot of the mushrooms come from Mountain Meadow Mushroom Farm, which is another local.
How one farmer takes farm fresh to a whole new level. A farming accident claims 3 lives in northwest Minnesota. Plus, the finish line may finally be in sight for getting a Phase 1 trade deal with China signed.
Well, it's not everything, but it's for the Aggies, absolutely it's everything.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado and the all-new Silverado HD, the strongest, most advanced family of Silverados ever.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Clinton has the day off. We appear to be moving closer to getting a Phase 1 trade deal with China signed. Several news agencies reporting a top Chinese delegate and his staff will visit Washington, D.C. later this week. According to the South China Morning Post, Vice Premier Liu He is leading a delegation to Washington this Saturday. The delegation is expected to stay a few days until the middle of next week. Reuters is reporting the trade deal would likely be signed in the next week. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro telling Fox News, quote, "We'll probably have a signing on that within the next week or so. We're just waiting for the translation."
The White House officials are saying it will be signed next week. We'll take any day for the signing, because why the signing is important is because then both sides totally agree in writing, and also hopefully they will release the 86-page document where we'll pour through some of the further details that are lacking right now.
Weiss Meyer is one of our correspondents who has talked with U.S. Trade Representative Chief Ag Negotiator Greg Dowd. Dowd says the deal is done.
Well, it's more than pretty much locked in. It is locked in. And so what happens now is you go through a process of translation. So it's translated from English into Chinese and back into English, and everybody makes sure everybody understands legally what the agreement is, and you have to understand that takes a significant amount of time, particularly with the Chinese language.
Dowd says it's an enormous undertaking to translate the verbiage. For example, they discussed for an hour just what one word meant in the deal. China officials are signaling they will release more pork reserves. It's to make sure there is an ample supply for the New Year and Lunar New Year holidays in the country. State-run CCTV quoted a Ministry of Commerce official as saying the country will also up its imports of pork. It will diversify the origin it will import pork from. Meanwhile, the Vice Minister of Agriculture and Rural Affairs says authorities at all levels are fully prepared to make sure pork prices are maintained at a stable level ahead of the upcoming holidays. Another reason why China will import more farm products from the U.S. and others is food inflation. The average Chinese household spends nearly 1/5 of its disposable income on food. That's according to a nationwide survey of roughly 35,000 households conducted in the summer by China's Southwestern University of Finance and Economics. That is more than twice the comparable U.S. share. China's inflation reached a nearly 8-year high in November after pork prices soared 110%. USDA has approved industrial hemp licensing plans for Louisiana, Ohio, and New Jersey. Those states are the first to get approval. 34 other states have hemp research or pilot projects going on. The federal government legalized hemp in 2018. Hemp fiber and seeds are used to produce textiles, rope, paper, cosmetics, fuel, and CBD, among other things. The weather has been brutal in portions of the country. This video is from Ainsworth, Nebraska earlier in the week. Mark Miles sharing this with us as he tries to care for his livestock. Luckily, temperatures are warming up as the week is ending. And thankfully, those frozen areas are thawing out, but meteorologist Cindy Clausen shows us some of the issues it caused in farm country.
Yeah, that's right. It was kind of a nasty storm system over the nation's midsection, even up to 2 feet of snow in spots. Yeah, luckily that is long gone, but it certainly left its mark. Looking at some pictures, Casey Cooksley shows us what more than 14 inches of snow and 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts can look like in Sargent, Nebraska. That is not a pretty sight. And over in Wausau, Wisconsin, Brian Wilkie says he was about ready to start to combine more corn when Mother Nature dropped 4 to 8 inches of heavy, wet snow earlier in the week. That was a really, really nasty storm. And again, those winds were awful. Now we'll have some more wet weather and even some more snow in some of those locations as we head into the next couple of days. I'll have more on that forecast coming up. Betsy?
And while many people are getting ready to put their Christmas trees at the curb, the industry is weighing in on the season. The New England Christmas tree growers saying despite issues with Mother Nature, many growers and sellers experienced an early brisk business. They say it was driven in part by a growing demand for an all-natural holiday. A member of the New Hampshire-Vermont Christmas Tree Association, which represents about 200 primarily wholesale growers in the two states, said it was a good year for the industry. He believes most, if not all, wholesale tree growers sold out their crops this year. The president of the Maine Christmas Tree Association said it was a seller's market this year. Tree shortages in parts of the Midwest and South had buyers seeking trees in New England and Canada. And while many in farm country have been glad to turn over the calendar to a new year, what did we learn from 2019? We look back and forward in today's analysis. And later, the steps one farmer is taking to make sure the food he grows stays fresh in the country.
It's got soybeans higher yet again. The futures do remain in Friday's range, but the market is still strong. It is the reversal on Friday was just kind of an aberration. China ambassador says that to the U.S. Said that the trade commitments are really confirmed. So they expect that China is definitely going to move in and start taking some delivery on soybeans. That is very, very positive, moving the market higher. I think the light participation in the market also must be considered, and that's why we see the markets, kind of moving a little bit more than we normally would see. That being said, this is quite a bit different than it was last year. So we see the market moving to end on an upswing. And that's really positive, especially especially that we're going to be going into 2020. Corn also was very mixed. We started initially had a big rally, made a new high, but it didn't really last. I think a lot of selling came in right there. The China news, the fact that they removed some of the GMO blockages, really, maybe sparked the market to move a little bit higher. Some short covering. Because of the exports of the markets have been improved an awful lot. So that's really great for the markets to move higher. And there's a big range, but we're still in consolidation and we're still eyeing that $4 mark. We're now with the softness of the U.S. Dollar index, I think that can help as well. So the cattle was a little bit lower. That light volume trade equals there's no market direction as we see the market continue to move sideways. But the futures are basically on hold right now, even though world beef numbers are inflated, and that adds to the support of the market right now. That's why we're moving a little bit sideways. However, there is some concern that some of the beef sales will have a slowdown, and that's going to be coming on the horizon. But that being said, we still have this phase 1 deal to be signed, and I think that's definitely going to affect the meats across the board.
Analysts certainly had a lot to watch in 2019. Clinton Griffith spoke earlier with Ted Seifert about last year and what he'll be watching to start this year.
Here in AgDay studio, we've got Ted Seifert, Zaner Ag Hedge. Ted, okay, 2019, we're wrapping up this year.
Yep.
There were some pretty good lessons, albeit maybe some hard lessons from this year. What's high on your list of things you'll take away?
Well, Clinton, I really do feel like 2019 is going to be a year we remember for a long time.
Absolutely.
So many different things going on this year. To start the year, we were coming into 2019 with a trade issue, the trade war that we're having with China. So how do we work with that? How do we deal with that? Do we stay optimistic? So that was something that not all of us have had to deal with in the past, and it was something that really affected us, and we had no control over it. So we had to watch that. We had to be very careful about our marketing, as we do most years, but this year maybe more than anything. So that's one lesson to take away, is that when we're given our opportunities, we need to come in and take those opportunities. But let's talk about weather. Let's talk about planting. We had a terrible weather year. Yield-wise, maybe not so much, but getting planted, getting harvested, everything in between was really touch and go. But one of the things that shocked me this year was when we were sitting there in the first week of June talking about, well, we've got 15, 16, 17 million acres of corn left to plant. It's just not going to happen. Guys aren't going to keep rolling. Well, guess what? They did, right? So
Right.
I think we learned how a corn crop can act when planted really late. And granted, we had a pretty decent fall weather to finish the crop. But nobody thought we could get that corn crop planted.
Right.
And if we did, it wouldn't make anything. Well, it did. Maybe it wasn't a perfect corn crop. It wasn't. And I do think the USDA is going to have to back down on their production estimates come the January report.
Sure.
But we still made a pretty decent corn crop, and the corn made it to the finish line. So that kind of reshapes our outlook on wet and late planting seasons. Maybe we won't be quite as excited about it next time around. So that goes back to the first point, is that when you see opportunities in the market, you got to take them. And more often than not, things aren't as bad as they seem, and things aren't as good as they seem. So when you get to extremes, when the speculative crowd comes in and starts taking the ball and running with it, well, you got to take advantage of that. You got to keep a clear head and realize that, hey, this has been a very nice rally off the lows. Ultimately, the scenario isn't that bullish, maybe. We need to market.
Yeah. Take advantage
Take
when
advantage.
we can. We talk about that all the time.
Absolutely.
Ted. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. We'll be back with more Ag Day and a check of weather coming up in just a minute.
For professional marketing advice specifically tailored to your needs, call Zaner Ag Hedge at 312-277-0113.
Welcome back to Ag Day with meteorologist Cindy Clausen. Cindy, when you look at the map, the southeast sure looks wet.
Yeah, we're definitely having a wet start to the day, and it's going to be fairly wet over the next couple of days as that low pressure system in the Gulf moves up along the eastern coast. We're starting the day with a fair amount of rain in parts of the central Gulf Coast states. That system again pushing off to the southeast and then eventually up the east coast. Now the second system we're watching is a front that's right through the nation's midsection, and that's going to move to the east. We're going to see more snow in some of those areas that had that heavier snow over the weekend and into the early part of the week. So let's put this into motion. You're going to see that low moving up further into the Gulf Coast states with heavy rain in the central Gulf Coast states, moving into the Tennessee Valley. Not a ton of snow yet for the upper Midwest, but as we start to pick up more moisture, we'll see that snow picking up in parts of the upper Midwest. Now, as we head into the rest of our Thursday afternoon, we're going to be seeing that rain spreading into parts of the Ohio Valley and into parts of the Great Lakes as all of that moisture starts to surge northward. We will see some upper elevation snow in parts of the west, and we're going to see another system coming off of the Pacific, so that's going to bring some more wet weather to the west. Into the overnight hours we go. That low starts to move towards the mid-Atlantic states, so look for some rain there, but we start to see some cooler air on the north side of that, so maybe a bit of icy weather there. You can see that with that second low, we're going to start to pick up a lot more moisture, so that rain starts to move into Missouri, Illinois. On the back side of that, we're talking snow, so that's going to start to pile up as we get into the upper Midwest. So through the day on Friday, that low starts to move further to the north. You can see as we pick up more moisture, we're really starting to see more rain, more precipitation, more snow in parts of the Midwest. The southeast will continue to see that rain with that low that's moving up the coast. And as we finish off our Friday, that low starts to move into, again, the mid-Atlantic states, and we start to see more snow in Wisconsin, Illinois, even parts of Missouri as well. On the east side of that, we're seeing rain. That low, everything kind of moves up to the northeast, so the snow really favors folks in probably northern Michigan into Wisconsin. It's going to be more rain, but maybe a mixture as you get a little bit further to the east of that. All right, let's look at the jet stream. We've got a dip in there. You got a trough in parts of the plain states. Still a bit warm in the southeast where there's that rain, but as we head through our Friday and into the weekend, we do see some cooler air coming into play and some stormier weather, and we see that on our other map. And then as we get through our Sunday, that trough moves off the east coast. We kind of flatten out for just a little bit, but as we get into early next week, we see another trough developing in the Great Lakes area. All right, that's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Lovelock, Nevada, partly cloudy for you today with a high of 48 degrees. Clarks, Louisiana, showers and thunderstorms with a high of 66. And Welch, West Virginia, warmer with some showers and a high of 51 degrees.
3 people are dead after an incident involving a silo. We'll have the latest. And later, how one farmer is making sure you know where your food comes from. A horrible story out of northwest Minnesota. 3 people dying in a toxic grain silo incident. It happened at a dairy farm near the town of Millerville just before Christmas. Investigators say 47-year-old Kurt Bozel and his 12-year-old son Alex were working in a grain silo and were overcome by toxic gas. Kurt's brother, 49-year-old Stephen Bozel, went in to rescue the two, and he was also overcome and died. Alex Bozel was taken by air ambulance to a nearby hospital. Alex passed away over the weekend. Friends of the family have started this GoFundMe page. Purdue University recently reported there was a 30% increase in grain entrapments in 2018. It reported several of those cases were caused by insufficient oxygen levels or toxic environments. Some cows are getting something new in their diet, and that's seaweed. A group of scientists and farmers in northern New England are doing it. It's to see whether a diet of seaweed can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The concept has gained traction in recent years after some studies showed the potential of seaweed feeds to cut back on methane. But it's not known which kind of seaweed offer the highest benefits to farmers looking to cut methane. Coming up, how can farmers make sure what they produce gets to the market just the way they want? One producer in California decided to take matters into his own hands next in the country. Farmer is taking the farm to market idea to a whole new level. As our friends at California Bountiful show us, he decided to open his own supermarket.
So when you're talking about farming in Valley Center, you have to talk about the Staley Farm. And here to tell me all about it is Noel Staley, the latest in the line of farmers here, long line of farmers here. So tell me about the farm here.
Well, the farm is in Valley Center because of housing. My dad was a farmer in Anaheim, and as we know, there's not a lot of farms left in Anaheim near Disneyland, and that's right where he farmed. And he was a chicken farmer at the time. So as housing goes, chickens don't. So they stink. So he moved his farm here to Valley Center. Back in 1962, he purchased the land. He moved here in 64. And we've been farming here ever since.
So tell me, how did the idea for the markets come about, the stores?
So the farmers markets have been something that we've been in for going back to the 80s. We thought of an everyday farmers market was what our first concept was. So these are some of our heirloom tomatoes. And with tomatoes, you don't want to necessarily have them in a cooler. So our plan here is we bring them in, we put them in the cooler, we pull the heat out of them from the day, then they'll just go into one of our storage spaces. There's an old building behind me that was a chicken feed bin, and the bottom of it was built out of concrete block. So it stays at a nice about 60 degrees, so which is perfect for storing tomatoes. So these are some Valencias that came in last night, got them nice and cold, so now they're ready to go up on the packing line. Probably won't pack today. We'll probably pack a lot tomorrow. We're getting ready for our weekend farmers markets. We've got store deliveries tomorrow.
So is there nothing you don't grow? I mean, you grow everything. Lime?
Yeah, it's easier sometimes to say what I don't grow than what I do grow. So we're down to the last of the limes. These are pretty nice and green, but as we saw outside, there's some real yellow boxes out there, which is the majority of what we're getting off the trees right now.
And so the Staley family doesn't just sell their produce at farmers markets, they actually built their own markets. Let's go check it out. Come on. Hey, Noel, long time no see.
Yeah.
There's the avocados.
So this is how they look when you get them at the store.
Fresh from the farm.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the produce you have here.
So everything, like I said, at the farm, we start local, and we start with our farm, and then neighbors. Here we have Archie's Acres. Basil right here. That's one of my neighbors, so and a great story and a great program that they're doing there.
Absolutely.
A lot of the mushrooms come from Mountain Meadow Mushroom Farm, which is another local.
Oh yeah. That.
So there's always offshore. We can always go get it.
Yeah.
But we try to start local and then move out from there.
How many farmers own their own supermarket? I mean,
I honestly don't know how many. I mean, we're all crazy.
I was
We're
going to
in
say either
farming.
you're crazy or you're a genius. One of the two.
Well, hopefully someday I'll be a genius, but right now we're still paying bills.
So give it time. Give it time.
Our thanks again to California Bountiful for that story. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.